All right, so what defines being rich and how do you achieve becoming rich? Stay tuned, we're going to dive into it. Alrighty, so being rich is going to be relative to basically whoever you are. So there's people that have millions of dollars, and they don't think that they're rich. They spend it on, tons of cars and various things like that. There's going to be other people that, basically make 40 grand a year, but they don't have to work. Maybe it's a pension, maybe it's something like that. And they're rich because they have the time to spend with their families. They can go fish at the local lake. They can do things like that. So everyone's going to be a little bit different on what rich means. For me, it's going to be a lot of traveling and trying to enjoy life, not sitting behind a desk every single day of my life. That's being rich. And it's going to be a certain value of money that I need to achieve in order to do that. And I don't need to be rich like, some of the NBA stars and things like that. I just need a certain level to become comfortable, I guess is what you want to call it. So when you actually look at becoming rich, that's probably the number you want to come up with first is where is that number for you? It can be 40 grand, it can be $2 million that you actually need. And every year, or it can be $2 million in the bank or $100,000 in the bank, depending on where you live. So becoming rich, that's the first thing you want to do is define what's rich. A lot of times it isn't going to be money. You're going to see obviously health and all those things have a huge thing to do with it, and obviously you're going to learn that as you get older. But you have to pick your number. So let's start there. So let's pick a number just to kind of show you the way you can achieve riches and the way you should actually think about money. I actually do have a video, just FYI. It's called Simple Investment Advice for Making Passive Income for Life. Didn't get a lot of views, but go back and check that out. I'll have the link in the description. It's something that I learned a long while back on how to treat money and how to actually save your money. But anyways, I'm going to kind of dive into something a little bit different here, and let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to try to teach people a little bit different way to look at money and how you actually should look at investing, or even passive income. So basically, if you look at making $105,000 every year of your life without actually having to work, while you're sleeping and all that kind of stuff, it's daunting. It's really difficult to figure that out. The way I like to look at it is a little bit different. I say, how much money do I need to make every 5 minutes of my life? So every 5 minutes of the year, I need to make a certain amount of money. Basically, what that comes down to is going to be, for me, it's going to be around $1 every 5 minutes. All right, so let's break this down and show you how this works. So if I'm making $1 every 5 minutes, all right, that's basically going to be $12 an hour. If you do the math on that. So that's $12 an hour. But let's times that by 24 hours a day. And that's going to give you $288 a day. Don't forget, this is 24 hours a day. You're not only working 8 hours, it's going to be for 24 hours. And then times that by 365, which is how many days there are in a year. Take out the weekends and holidays and things like that. And you're going to be working, you're going to have this passive income coming in all the time. That's $105,000 right there. So my number that I need to look and concentrate on is going to be basically that $1, every 5 minutes. And it's going to come down to about, $12 per hour. And so how can I make $12 per hour? And I need to make it without actually my own time. I need it to be coming in passively. So that's where I look into things basically out there that are going to be more like e-commerce stores or investing. So for instance, let's say I have, and again, this is just a quick example. All right, so let's say I have $100,000 in the bank. And on that money, I'm going to be making about 7% a year on that. So right off the bat, that's $7,000, right? So that $7,000 is going to be part of that $105,000 that I need to make. So if you divide that obviously by 105,000 equals, so it's about 6 to 7% of that money that I need to make based off that investment. And so that's maybe not the best way to do it. You can see that it's going to be a little more difficult with putting it into like just saving your money that way. It's going to take you maybe $1 million, a couple $1 million, $2 million at 3.5%, 5%, somewhere in that range to get to your 100,000. So that's one way to do it, but that may not be the best. So it gets me, I'm not making that dollar every 5 minutes. So the next thing I can look at is, well, geez, how do I make money when I'm sleeping? Let's say I have an e-commerce store and my e-commerce store sells, let's say it sells 50 different items a day, but it's over the 24 hours. So basically divide it by 24. So basically I'm selling about 2 items per hour, and that's basically off my e-commerce store. Let's say that I make $5 or $6 on each of those products I'm selling, there's $12 an hour over the course of the entire year. Right, $12 an hour for the 24 hours, obviously. And then times 365. All right, so I'm meeting my goal now. So I need to sell, so let's say I need to open an e-commerce store maybe. That's one option. And if I do, I know I need to sell that amount of items over that amount of time, and I need to make about that much profit. So now I can start divulging and kind of seeing what I actually need to do to reach my goal. And I'm not just sitting around waiting for it to happen. I'm actually kind of planning for it to happen, which is a big thing, big step. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So for instance, let's say on top of that, I have some real estate that I've purchased, and I get I'm basically making $800 a month. So $800 a month is basically going to be what they pay me, and then the rest I actually have to pay for like the insurance and taxes and things like that. So, but this is my actual profit. Obviously, again, when you look at it this way, you can basically divide it by, let's say, 30 days in a month. Obviously, so you're making $26 basically, per day, and then divide that by 24. So just that alone is only making me about $1, $1 an hour, somewhere in that range for the course of the year. But at the end of the day, that $1 an hour is basically, comes out to about 1/12 of what I need to make for the entire year. So I can put that into my formula as well. So I would need 12 properties, in order to achieve my goal there. So you have to kind of break down these numbers like this, and then you basically start kind of figuring out the best techniques to make the money, because you definitely need to be making money while you're sleeping if you ever, if you want to basically have that income coming in without having to work. So you have to make a plan, and there's going to be some work involved, obviously, to get this stuff set up. It's not going to be 100% passive. So anyways, I like to think about money that way. Obviously it's going to maybe be a little confusing or a little convoluted when you look at it this way, but it helps me break it down. And I actually think to myself, it makes me think outside of the box, outside of regular investing techniques. And it also, even like my jobs, like if I owned a place that was just, doing, let's say, cutting lawns, for example, I only have 8 hours a day to cut those lawns, right? But I mean, basically, if I open up an e-commerce store, I keep using that example, but maybe it can be a 24-hour something else, or whatever you want to call it. But I have an opportunity to open up all those hours now, and that's the big key. And obviously, again, it depends on how you're going to do it, because there's going to be work involved, and there's not always going to be basically no work, and you're not going to always have 0 hours of work to put in to make this. But at the end of the day, you can see what I'm getting at. Looking at money this way is actually really important, and it's a great way to actually expand your wealth and eventually become rich, whatever your number is, whether it's 40,000 or whether it's 120, 150, 600,000 per year. Just pick your number and start working. All right, so what's the moral, or what's the whole reason for this video? It's basically, when you look at being rich, it's basically going to be, I think, a comfort level. It's a level of comfort that when you have some financial, backing, and you don't have to worry day to day on your finances. So once you get to that point, you can actually, do whatever you want to do, whether it is make more money and work harder, which is one thing, or if it's going fishing out, by a lake, or if it's actually traveling a little bit. So I think that's the definition of being rich is, it just depends on what you need actually to achieve that. Some people have a really high threshold for it, and some people can live off almost nothing. When you have your health, that's the main thing. That's probably the number one thing. But after that, then, pick your number, go ahead and just listen, try my system here a little bit, and let me know, give some comments and things like that. But it's a good way to look at money. And again, check out my video. It's called Simple Investment Advice for Making Passive Income for Life. I'll put it in the description, and check out that video as well. That's how you should really look at your investments as well. I mean, it's from something I learned from when I was a little, kind of a little child, showing me how to treat money. And if you treat money like that, then you're almost guaranteed to have it later in life. Anyways, I make a bunch of videos each week, so check them out. I'll talk to you soon.